Couples therapists. What are some relationships that instantly set off red flags? Part 2. My father-in-law is a couple therapist. He tells me all the interesting couples when I visit. I low-key hope I can find a way to go back to school and do what he does. He told me about a couple with a big age gap. Like 20 years IIRC. Story went on about him being an average guy and her being a train wreck. Drugs. Abuse at a young age. Etc. She gets clean and starts dating this older guy. A little weird, but the more I hear the story, I'm waiting for it to connect and make sense. The dude was her teacher in high school. We spoke a long while about that couple. Where you are in your life is a big deal. It's bigger than we make it. If someone wants to be a wild and free 20-something, you cannot expect them to be a settled down, married with children stay-at-home mom just because you're 40. And that's okay. This thread made me realize how toxic and abusive my last relationship was. It makes me sick till this day when I think of the gaslight and manipulations I went through to cover up his lies, cheating and abuse. When I see a couple in which one or both of the members are seeking to change something fundamental about the other person, we process where the need for the change comes from and the person with the issue evaluates whether it's a deal breaker for them or not. We work on acceptance and tolerance of others. I also recommend my couples are also in individual therapy on their own. Edit, typing this on my phone. Period after first sentence should be a comma. Edit, thanks for the awards, pals. Remember, we wake up every day and decide if we want to choose our partners. A long-term relationship is a multitude of days when you've woken up and said yes. Whataboutism. Instead of taking ownership and responsibility for their contribution to the degradation of the relationship, one or both parties simply point out an example of the other exhibiting a similar behavior. It's a red flag because it illustrates their lack of self-awareness and poor communication skills. Communication is key when trying to mend a tattered relationship because without respectful communication the conflict recovery process can never begin. In the conflict recovery model, both parties agree to the terms under which they will communicate: no yelling, no interrupting, no I told you so's, etc. Each party gets a chance to share how the other's actions make them feel. Then they each propose their solutions and identify where they made assumptions or where they got triggered and why. Then they identify where they're willing to compromise. Next, we create an actionable plan with deadlines and we monitor the progress to see if the proposed solutions were effective. Everything can go to shit. But once communication stagnates, you're in real trouble. So even if you're arguing, you're still doing okay. You just need to work on how you're communicating. I've seen a family that presents everything as alright. That's a red flag. Almost everything is certainly not alright, even in the most functional relationships. In fact, it's one of the most commonly misheld beliefs that there are perfect relationships. To your second question, yes and no. Yes, I do try to get them to work it out, but that's all dependent on what they think, feel, and want to happen. Sometimes it's just helping them realize what they want. I'm not a couples therapist, but I've done family counseling. One red flag I see a lot is someone trying to win me over. I can smell it often within seconds of meeting a family who's trying to manipulate the situation to their advantage. Realizing why and whether it's malicious or just anxiety takes longer. Therapist *, so you're considering ending the marriage. Wife *, I am sick of all the Star Wars puns. Husband *, divorce is strong with this one. The male party in the couple gifted me chocolates on Valentine's Day during the couple's session. For starters, we need a serious tag for this op. Good question though. What I loved about our marriage counselor is from the start he said his job wasn't to try to get us to stay together but guide us for us to figure if we should be together. Contempt. When I experience true contempt from one in the relationship, I know it is usually over. Look towards a peaceful ending at that point if possible. Not a relationship therapist, but once worked with a woman whose boyfriend had sexually assaulted a client while he was at work, but she was convinced it was just a misunderstanding. So I knew that was a relationship that wouldn't last and that she struggled to pick stable partners. I was right. It's very easy to work out when one person knowingly prioritizes their own wants and needs over their partner's. Relationships like this are often doomed because the person simply doesn't care enough to make any meaningful change. Good question. I doubt I have much to add that others haven't already said, but the biggest one I notice is respect. Respecting space, boundaries, feelings, interests. Relationships are also important, and lack of respect by either person for the other is going to mean big problems. I would definitely try to help them work through it, but it's hard to point out to someone that something they are doing is hurting the other. Which leads to my second red flag. Lack of communication. LOL. The Gottman Institute has identified what they call the 4 horsemen of a relationship. The Gottmans themselves have been able to predict whether a couple will last after 20 minutes of talking with them. Searching for any identifiers of when me and my ex-wife tried therapy. I'm not a couples therapist, but I recommended a couples therapist to a coworker for some premarital counseling. My partner and I had really enjoyed our premarital sessions from this super nice therapist, and when a girl from my work got engaged, she asked for his number. The day after their first session, I got a call from the girl saying, "I can't believe you sent me to this horrible, invasive, rude counselor." I was in a panic. "Oh no. What happened?" She explained. "We went in there and sat down, and the first thing he asked was, 'So, why do you want to get married?' How rude is that? How dare he?" That's when I realized that maybe their relationship wasn't going to pan out. They called off the wedding a few months later. I'm in marriage counseling. And the very first session restored hope in a relationship where divorce was threatened in every fight. The moment hope was restored was when we both immediately owned our own shit and said we just want to learn how to love each other again. The therapist was like, "You both want to do better. You both want things to get better. We can work with this." I got the impression he had dealt with people who just want to be right. With an audience. So glad that wasn't us. The reason I'm responding is because he supported that thought, saying, "Some couples are doomed because they just want an audience for their resentment, not help moving past it." Edit typo. Vengeful acts. They did X, so I did Y, so they learn. Therapist here. In my experience, strong, healthy relationships are built on 2 very important qualities: trust and respect. Love is not included in these qualities because love is not a determiner of a strong/healthy relationship. Dysfunctional relationships are still possible among people who love each other. And loving someone isn't the only reason to stay with a person. Many of the clients that I've worked with in the past who are in very dysfunctional relationships have actually stayed solely because of love, but continue to struggle in those relationships because they lack trust and respect. Without respect and trust, most relationships are doomed to struggle or fail. For the couples that I've worked with, I always assess for whether or not trust and respect is present, and then build treatment goals around seeing if it's possible to develop those qualities. If they are not willing or able, then in most cases those relationships are likely to end. God, I'm so fucking defective. That's how I feel reading the comments. LOL. Contempt. Nothing else spells the end like that particular emotion. Not me, but my dad was a pastor. He did premarital counseling. He had a couple who wanted him to marry them. During their premarital counseling, it came up that the guy was possessed by a demon that caused him to hit her sometimes. My dad met with her in private and explained that nothing supernatural was happening, that she was in an abusive relationship, that getting married would not get rid of his demon. He told her that how their relationship was now was while he was on his best behavior. It would only get worse after they were married. My dad refused to marry them and recommend he get therapy. I'll just say that if you find yourself screaming "I'm not fucking yelling at you," you might have a communication problem. Edit, I want to add a more thoughtful note. But I should also mention that I mainly work with individuals. Similar to what others have said. The reddest of flags for me is when clients try to get me to take sides. I can understand why people may do that every now and then during more difficult discussions. But if it happens consistently, it's a huge problem. There are plenty of reasons that people may do this. But the reality is that therapy is meant to foster cooperation between partners. Feeling like you need the therapist on your side indicates you're approaching the relationship as a competition, not a cooperative interaction. And nothing good comes from that. Also, I once had a supervisor who did a great deal of couples work tell me that it has such a bad success rate because people rarely come before the relationship has crossed the point of no return. Unfortunately, that seems to be a very accurate description. As a clinical psychologist, I focused mainly on behavioral medicine and cognitive assessment, but did my fair share of marriage/couples work. Refusal or inability to compromise is a ginormous red flag. One that, I believe, is empirically validated. Compromise is a significant predictor of satisfaction in relationships, and it plays an important role in the long-term success of marriages and relationships in general. All these responses have made me so much more grateful for my younger sister, who pestered me until I was in tears of anger to leave my ex. Within a week I could see how much better my life was without him. I'll never be able to tell her how much it means to me that she was ready for me to hate her, as long as it meant I was away from him. Thanks for watching.